back to my channel, and if you're new here, hello, my name is Shanice. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so that way you stay notified whenever I upload new videos, and welcome to the family. So I know the setup is a little different from normal. I normally, vlog while I'm out working, but I am actually at home right now. I have actually been off of work for about a week and a half. I go back on the 17th, which is this Tuesday, because I was out sick. So for everyone, fellow flight attendants and anyone trying to get into the flight attendant industry, the aviation industry, whenever you're sick, make sure you take care of yourself, because it can, be dangerous if you're sick, or you can be infecting other people. Being sick, you're automatically kind of congested, and you can't be in the air while you're congested because that affects your ears. So stay home and get better. So while I'm here at home, I decided to make a video for anyone out there who is curious on what is the difference between mainline and regional airlines. I know when I first started, looking into everything or trying to figure out, where I wanted to go, I didn't even know what a mainline or a regional or even a charter airline was. I knew who, the major guys was, like American Airlines, Delta, and United. I knew Southwest uniform, but I truly didn't know that was their name, was Southwest Airlines. But I didn't know that there was categorized as mainline. The airline that I'm with now, my regional airline, I didn't even know they existed. Like, I honestly don't even remember how I even came across them, but I did, and now I am a flight attendant. So now I really don't want to include anything dealing with a charter airline, because even though, yes, I was able to get an interview with a charter airline and I kind of know like a smidget enough about it, I've never worked with them or for them, so I really can't give any insight on even like what it is. Just as a disclaimer, this is mainly targeted toward the, airlines that is mainly operates or works in the United States. Of course, I've never worked outside of the United States, so I really can't give any insight for these international airlines. I'm pretty sure there is still some similarities with the international airlines, but I can't speak on those because I have no experience with it. This is also only based off of my experience so far, so maybe one day in the future I'll make an updated version of this video, because there is some things that I could be wrong about, or it could change like in the future, because flight attendants contracts has always been negotiated, so there could be some changes. So as a little backstory about myself, I used to work as an operations lead at a FedEx warehouse for 5 years. Towards the ending of my time there, we was always like doing overtime, and it's like I was starting to get burnt out. I started to fall out of love with it because I felt like we was just doing the same old routine over and over again. So it was like I was fiending for something new. So I was never really a traveler prior to being a flight attendant. I had only been on the plane for what I can remember 3 times, technically 4, but that 4th time was like when I was a baby, so I really don't remember that. One of the times was going to my brother's wedding in Las Vegas. The other 2 times was actually for my job at the time, because they had a little incentive for some of the workers to actually go to another state to help, start up another FedEx building. So I volunteered for that. So the other 2 times was dealing with work. But what made me like actually start thinking about becoming a flight attendant was the time that I had went to my brother's wedding. And it was like, while I was there, I don't know, I just really liked the environment, if that's weird to say. I just really liked being up there, and was like wondering like one day I could work up here. So ever since then, it was like always in the back of my mind. I never really took it serious, but I always thought of it as like, a dream job that, it's a dream job, but it's really not feasible or possible. So this was a couple years before the pandemic. So I will always, watch YouTube videos of other flight attendants and, see how they, how their life is as a flight attendant. It kind of died down, the thought of being a flight attendant, until, the pandemic happened. And this was because like, in the news, they was always bringing up, how the pandemic was affecting the aviation industry. And it's like, I don't know, for some reason, even though it was a bad time, that sparked me wanting to be a flight attendant again. So last year of 2021 is when I actually took it serious, and I actually started to apply to many different airlines, several regionals, several main lines, one charter airline, and of course I had gotten interviews from almost all of the regionals. I got an interview for the charter. I got interview offers for one of the mainline airlines that I had applied to, but the other mainline airlines, I didn't hear from them until earlier this year of 2022. So out of all of the interviews that I had went to, I had gotten 3 CJOs from the regional airlines, which was Commute Air, SkyWest Airlines, and then the airline that I'm working with now. SkyWest was the very first one that, I had got the CJO with, and that was exciting to me because it's like, dang, I can do it. But overall, I chose the airline that I'm with now. Honestly, for livelihood reasons, it was the most paying and the bigger regional airlines out of all the other regional airlines. So before I start the main piece of what this video is about, I do want to, quickly answer some main questions that, people who is new to this industry, including some questions that I had at the time. So one of the questions that I see a lot is, are you required to work at a regional airline first before trying to go to mainline? And the answer to that is a major no. There is flight attendants who is at mainline airlines at this very moment, and that was the very first airline that they applied to, the very first airline they got an interview with, and that's where they've been for their whole flight attendant career. There's other airlines who started out regional or maybe private airlines or charter airlines and then went mainline. So no, it's really not required to start at a regional airline. What is mainline or what is regional? So mainline airlines are basically airlines that mainly service larger cities or has larger routes. So airlines such as American Airlines, Delta, United, Southwest even fits into that category. Those are considered mainline airlines, the big guys. Regional airlines or commuter airlines, they are mainly airlines that service smaller cities or has, smaller routes. They also are most of the times either owned by a mainline or contracted by a mainline. So for an example, PSA, Piedmont, and Envoy is wholly owned by American Airlines. But SkyWest just works for American Airlines, Delta, United, and Alaska Airlines. They're not owned by anybody. They just work for them. Is there an age requirement when trying to be a flight attendant? And with that one, it's a kind of. The only reason I say kind of is because you have to at least be legally an adult, which means 18 and older. You do not have a cutoff age where like being too old to be a flight attendant. That is not a thing at all. So if you're out there feel discouraged about that, please don't. The only requirements that you just need to meet is basically being able to perform the job duties. So just go online and basically see what is the job duties of a flight attendant based off of whatever airline you want to go to. And if you're able to meet those requirements without any alterations or any medical help or anything like that, then you're perfectly fine. You'll be able to, become a flight attendant. Perfect example, in my training class, the oldest or the most senior person in my class, she was 65 years old. So she was hired as a flight attendant and she was 65 years old. So there is no such thing as being too old to be a flight attendant. It's a such thing to be too young though, because you gotta be legal. Now that all of that is out of the way, time to get to the main part of this video. So how I'm going to split up the main parts of what I want to talk about, I'm going to split them into 2 groups. The first group is similarities between a mainline and regional, and then the differences between a mainline and regional. So basically take all of these things as a grain of salt and just, figure out what will be best for you, because not everyone is the same. Not everyone has the same needs in an airline. So a regional airline might be good for me, but it might not work out for you. So the first similarity a mainline and regional has is you are required to go to training before they even let you breathe on an airplane. It doesn't matter if you wasted money, because yes, it's a waste of money. It doesn't matter if you wasted money taking some type of flight attendant school training. It doesn't matter if you used to work as a flight attendant at a different airline. It doesn't matter at all. Once you get a CJO, you're going to get training dates, and you are required to pass however many weeks or months long that airline's training is before you are considered an official flight attendant for that airline. Next is your appearance. Most of, if not all of the airlines requires their flight attendants to at least have some type of professional appearance. Times is changing, and there is, some airlines already in the works on being lenient, meaning if you're someone who has a tattoo or something like I do, there is airlines who isn't as, strict as they used to be about them. However, they do not want their flight attendants looking like they had just gotten out of bed and came to work. Like, no. Another similarity is pay raise. So every airline, at whatever point it is, you are going to get a pay raise. Some airlines don't start out with a pay raise. You'll either have to work a full year before getting a pay raise, and then other airlines, you just got to get past your probationary period and then you'll get a pay raise. Like, for an example, some airlines, you'll get a pay raise at 6 months, and then you'll also start getting a yearly pay raise like everybody else. Other airlines, they might, make it at 3 months, you'll get a pay raise, and then at your year mark, you'll get your yearly pay raise. But overall, you're always going to get a pay raise at an airline. The next similarity is basically the type of passengers you'll be interacting with. So you'll basically be having, commercial passengers, meaning they are everyday people that you're interacting with. There may be occasions where, a high list person or celebrity is on your plane as a flight attendant, but that's not the majority of who you'll be interacting with every day. Side note, I had, a celebrity on my plane, and, it was very, nice, because I didn't think that was ever going to happen with me because I work on a regional airline. So that was very, nice. The next similarity is the type of service you'll be giving to your customers is based off of the flight distance. So perfect example, at my airline and at American Airlines, which is who we're owned by, we have main cabin and then we have first class. Main cabin service really don't change at all. So our service changes for first class. So mainly flights that is over 3 hours, that is when first class will receive a meal. If it's under 3 hours, they'll receive a snack basket. And then also, depending on whether it's AM or PM, determines what type of snack basket they ask. And then the final similarity is your everyday duties. We're all flight attendants. It doesn't matter if you're regional or mainline. All flight attendants, and we all have the same overall goal at the end of the day. So our main, contact point is an airport. We have to report on time. We have to make sure that we are dress code compliant. We have to, give services, make PAs on board. Worst case scenarios, have medical emergencies, deal with turbulence. We're all, flying in the same blue sky. So yeah, overall, our everyday duties are, the same. It may vary on what type of, small little differences, but pretty much the same. All right, so time for the differences. So the biggest difference, and then I'm going to end this video because that's the only difference. I'm just kidding. But the biggest difference is, of course, pay. But most times, regional airlines make about, and this is a rough guesstimate, I could be way under, I could be saying more, but a regional airline flight attendant usually makes $15 to $20 less than a mainline flight attendant. If you want to see an example on, pay, you can check out flightattendantprofessional.pro, and that will give the different list of airlines. They're mainly major airlines, but it will give a list of flight attendant pay. It's not up to date because I think those pay scales shows like 2019. Flight attendant contracts, changes. So of course it's not accurate. It's not what they're making as of right now. However, you'll see a gist of what they make. Now, I don't know an exact site that shows anything similar for regional airlines. If you know, let me know down in the comments below. But maybe just subtract $15 to $20 from their pay, and that's what, regional airline flight attendants get paid. I know there is some regional airlines where they're top out, or basically the amount that they stuck at since they've been there for however many years. There's an airline, regional airline, whose, capped rate is at $30-something, right? So that's after they've been there for like years and years and years, $30-something. There are some mainline airlines who start out with $30-something. So right there, that should tell you a lot. So another difference that I would like to touch on is destinations. Now, of course, both regional and mainline airlines do domestic flights. However, regional airlines is more likely to do more of the domestic flights. They even also, mainly go to the airports in the smaller cities. Mainline, they have more international flights. A regional airline, their main international flights is Canada and Mexico. Mainline, they may go to Paris, Japan, Cancun, Bahamas. They have a lot more international flights. So if you're someone who do want to be able to go international, mainline will be your main go-to. However, if you are someone who really don't care for international, you don't mind staying in the United States, then regional is fine too. All right, another difference is the flight times at the airlines. Regional airlines, more often than not, has a lot more shorter flights than a mainline airline. The longest flights that you may see is probably a 3.5 flight at a regional airline, but mainline airlines will more often than not do 3.5 or more type of flights. The shortest flight that I have seen at my airline has been literally 23 minutes. Along with the flight times, those also affects how many legs crew scheduling will give you. So if you have at a regional airline, flight set is only 23 minutes, you may see your schedule having maybe 5 or 6 legs in one day. But for a mainline airline, since their flights are a lot longer, they may see maybe at most probably 3 or 4 legs on their schedule. Now, even though we are regional airlines, there is, still regulations and laws put in place to where we can't be too overworked. So like crew scheduling can't throw 20 legs on our schedule, because there is still a certain amount of duty time that we can do. And then once that limit has been hit, we have to, take a rest period. They can't work us anymore. I think at my airline, our duty hours is 16 hours. And once we hit 16 hours, whether we're in the middle of a flight, anything like that, we have to stop, we have to rest. That's it. They can't add anything else on us. Plane types, or basically plane sizes. Regional airlines is mainly really, really small planes. The biggest plane that I have heard of for a regional airline is basically a 76 seater plane. So it can hold at most 76 passengers, which that's what my airline does. So at a mainline airline, their airplanes is, they could hold at least, if not twice as much, but maybe 3 times as much as a regional airline. So what also comes into play, the plane sizes also affects how many flight attendants can be on the plane. So it is a federal regulation that requires for every 50 seats on the plane is 1 flight attendant. So on my airline, our smallest plane fits exactly 50 people, which means there's only required 1 flight attendant on that plane. Our larger plane holds 76 people, which means 2 flight attendants is required on that plane. However, since mainline can hold, if not twice, but maybe 3 times as much as a regional airline, they're more often than not going to have maybe 4 or 5 flight attendants on that flight. Now, what can affect who you can or can't apply to is your height, since the different airlines, have different plane types. So if you are on the shorter side, it will be highly advised that you apply to regional. And if you are on the taller side, it's highly recommended that you apply to mainline, because there is a height limit on both ends. You can't be too short, but you also can't be too tall based off of that airline. So if you're someone who's like 6'1", you may be too tall for a regional, but you may be perfect for that mainline. So that was everything that I could think of for this video. If you do have any questions or have any suggestions on any, let me know down in the comments.